ready, Jason.
All right, we are live.
Okay, then we'll call the meeting in order. If we can raise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to
The flag,
the
United States of America,
to the republic
which it stands,
which
which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Maglio,
I am here.
Trustee Berkshire,
Here.
Trustee Domke,
I'm here.
Trustee Pulaski,
Here.
Trustee Sarno,
Here,
Trejo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the presentation of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Please, Mr. Trejo. All right, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire, Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
Trustee Sarno,
aye.
Trustee Pulaski.
Aye.
Okay, our motion's accepted. Okay, tonight's meeting is being done virtually due to the pandemic and will be viewed on the village's YouTube page. Any public announcements tonight?
I have no public announcements to report.
Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to the officials and staff report. I'm up first. And I would hereby nominate Todd Eichels to fill the remaining trustee term left vacant by the resignation of Patrick Devitt and request the board's advice and consent. Any
So
comment,
moved.
Mr. Trejo?
Just a quick comment. I just want to say, number one, I know last time we had a resignation, we didn't solicit as much public feedback as we did this time. So I appreciate the mayor's willingness to go out and getting a lot of solid resumes that we have potentially for other positions on the zoning board of appeals, for example, or other appointed boards. I think we had a very strong and robust group of candidates. Looking at all the candidates, Todd was definitely up at the top of my list. So definitely excited that you made this decision to pick Mr. Eichholz and look forward to working with him.
Anybody else? Okay, and that decision was made through an executive session. All the resumes were reviewed by all the trustees. A vote was made, and the nominee was Mr. Eichholz. Okay, so now, Madam Clerk, can I call for a roll call?
Yeah, who did I have a second on?
I really don't need it. It's just a nomination there for it. So Mr. Trejo did second it though, if you want.
Okay, all right, so Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
Trustee Pulaski,
Aye.
Trustee Sarno,
Aye.
and Mayor Maglio.
Aye.
Okay,
Mr. Eichholz,
welcome.
welcome. Can I have you, let me swear you in, if you wouldn't mind, we'll do this virtually. So everybody else can witness it.
You have to shave afterwards too, Todd.
I quit.
Raise your right hand. And after the I, state your name and then repeat after me. I,
I, Todd Eichholz,
having been appointed to the position of village trustee in the village of Roselle,
having been appointed to the position of trustee in the village of Roselle,
in the counties of DuPage and Cook,
in the counties of DuPage and Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I'll support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village trustee
I will faithfully discharge the duties of trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I'll help you God.
So help me God.
Handshake and welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Very well deserved. Okay, next. I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance ratifying the adoption of an action by a mayoral executive order during the declaration of local state of an emergency. I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if I can have a roll call, please.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
And our motion is carried. Okay, moving right along, the Benelux trustees have anything to report? David?
If I can just do a little personal privilege here, I just want to share with everyone that we lost our daughter last week today. So this is Margaret Ellen Pileski. So Mom and Dave, you're doing great. So
Oh,
we
she's
just wanted to
beautiful.
share our little bundle of joy and newest Roselle resident with everyone. So
Oh.
thankfully, with the virtual environment, we can do that. So hope everyone stays safe this Thanksgiving.
Oh, she's a doll.
You gotta go amend your
Congratulations.
census.
Welcome, Margaret. Glad she looks like the mother.
Oh.
Counting on you, Wayne. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Donkey, you had something else to add?
I hate to follow up such a breathtaking presentation as that.
Right.
What I'm going to say doesn't even seem important anymore, but tomorrow there's a dine to donate for the Roselle Sister Cities Association German Committee, and it's done at 354 West Army Trail Road at Chick-fil-A, and they are graciously donating 20% of the money derived from that sale to the German Committee. The hours between 5 and 8, if you can go and pick up a chicken sandwich or something, that will help out greatly. The money will be used for the video of Roselle that the German committee made to market Roselle to towns in Germany. And a copy of that will be also given to the Roselle History Museum and another copy to the Roselle Village for use in community development. So the money will be well used to finish that video. So that's it. Go to Chick-fil-A tomorrow. But the heck, it's not turkey, you know, so you might as well get something before the turkey day.
Anybody else? Madam Clerk, something to report?
Yes, it's getting quite festive around Village Hall and downtown. Encourage everybody to take a moment and drive downtown. We've got the trees that are lit and decorated by the different community groups, as well as the different businesses downtown. Even though we're not having a cocoa crawl or celebrate the season this year, we did go ahead and put the trees because it just adds such a festive touch, and the businesses were asking for something to add a little bit of cheer to their life. It looks really nice. Everybody has been out decorating because we've had such great weather, and it really looks pretty. So take a drive down Main Street, check out down Prospect. It looks great and just puts a smile on your face.
Thank you. Hope we all do. Village Attorney,
No report, Mayor.
Village Administrator,
No report.
Chamber of Commerce Liaison.
Well, actually, there's not much going on right now.
Ooh, then let's
We're
move on.
broken for the holidays. There's no Christmas party. And hopefully by January, we'll have a vaccine and a lot more important things to talk about.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on to our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial in nature, and will be enacted in one motion. There'll be no discussion on these items. You can ask our village attorney to give us a summary of the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On tonight's consent agenda, we have presentation and approval of the village board minutes of November 9th, 2020. The approval of the 10th partial payment for the Devlin influent pump and screening improvements in the amount of $787,915.22. Approval of the final payment for the 2020 storm sewer improvements in the amount of $81,478.46. The adoption of a resolution authorizing a supplemental statement of work with municipal GIS partners. And that completes the consent agenda for tonight, Mayor.
I have a motion to accept the consent agenda, please.
So
So moved.
moved,
Second, please.
whatever. It's between me and Lee. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
All right,
trustee Eichholz,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski.
Aye.
And our motion is carried. All right, moving on to our regular agenda under community development. David, we have nothing for you. You've done enough for this evening with our resume. Under administration,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A motion to adopt a resolution approving an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Roselle and Roselle Park District regarding the policing of park property.
Second.
any discussion, questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Domke.
Next thing, provide direction to staff for a cannabis advisory referendum question to be placed on the April 6, 2021 general consolidated election ballot. Turn it over to Brian for this.
Thank you, trustee. At the last board meetings, the board directed staff to bring back advisory referendum questions to consider for the April 6th consolidated general election ballot. We put together 3 recommended questions based on more information that was provided after the general election ballot on November 3rd. There were multiple communities that had advisory referendums placed on that ballot. So we combined the most well put together questions with unique Village of Roselle language to come up with these recommendations, in addition to some legal counsel in regards to the ambiguity in terms of the retail business establishments that are on some of the advisory questions that we chose to not include in the recommended 3 options. So tonight we're looking for direction from the board based on the 3 options. If there is a consensus on what to include, we'll bring back a resolution before January 19th for that to be included on the ballot. And we will, in addition, extend the moratorium that's currently in the zoning ordinance for a future date, preferably after the referendum is passed next April.
Okay, and for the public record, you want to go over those statements? Recommendations?
Sure. So the first recommendation in the memo, the first question is, shall the Village of Roselle allow cannabis businesses to operate within the Village of Roselle? The second is, shall the Village of Roselle allow the sale of adult use cannabis within guidelines established by the state of Illinois and the Village of Roselle? The third being, shall the Village of Roselle allow the sale of adult use recreational cannabis and related uses within the laws established by the state of Illinois and the Village of Roselle?
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to really
Yeah.
on those 3 options, so the board understands the legal import of them because they're slightly different. The first one is extremely broad and would cover all cannabis businesses at retail and wholesale. So it would include cannabis production businesses as well as retail sales businesses. The second option is a little bit more ambiguous because it says the sale of adult use cannabis, but it doesn't deal with the production of adult use cannabis, and it doesn't reference related uses. And the third one is similarly broad to the first one because it says sale of adult use recreational cannabis and related uses, which in my legal opinion would end up including non-retail but production type of cannabis businesses. So if you want to stick with just the retail uses, the second is probably the best option. And if you want to leave open the option of discussing not only retail sales, but production uses, wholesale businesses, either 1 or 3 would be your preferable form.
Andy?
That being spelled out, yes.
So my recollections and notes said we were looking to have 2 questions one specifically for the distribution and wholesale, because we thought that that might be something we would entertain in our industrial area. And the second question on the referendum or on the ballot was to deal with the actual sale and adult usage of it. And the purpose for having two specific questions was because we wanted to see whether or not there might be at least engagement of having some sort of wholesale or distribution center that might make it in the one area that is actually viable, the horseshoe across from Central. Whereas the other, we don't think there's a lot of space, but we also think that that's the one that most people are going to have the issue with, is the actual sale and adult usage. So although these are good, I still am looking for two questions because we're not going to be able to differentiate.
Mr. Trejo.
Yeah, I concur. That was my recollection as well. So we were saying that we wanted to have two questions, one that was about the sale and one that was about the potential production of adult use cannabis. So ideally, we would have two different questions. And just for clarity, it does appear that these are just simply advisory, but I just wanted to question about the use of shall then in the language. If you could elaborate on that, Jim.
Sure. The use of the word shall is the preemptory question that essentially defines what you're requesting. It is not mandatory because these are advisory. So shall does not have that legal effect in this context. Interestingly enough, the word shall appears in most referendum questions in the state of Illinois by, I think, historical preference.
Okay.
Is that an answer for you?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I just know that there's some shall and may.
Yeah, usually in
legalities.
contracts, usually in contracts, we prefer the word shall to will, but in this particular context, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, so I do think I agree with Bruce. So I recall the same thing, that we were talking about having two questions.
And then just for Mr. Odell, just for a public knowledge, right now our ordinance states what for the use of cannabis?
Right now, we allow medical cannabis sale and production. So, and that is only in the M1 limited district.
David? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, I agree with the two questions because I think they're very different in the public eye. I like question 2 for the recreational piece, but the one thing that I'm missing in that is it doesn't include the word recreational. I think just that conversation and Jeff's clarification, I think, is really hitting that home, because adult use could be medicinal or it can be recreational. And we know by state law, we can't outlaw medicinal usage. So I feel like, or sale rather of it in the jurisdiction. So I feel that if we're going to go down that route of using the second question, I would just want to add in the word recreational adult use to further clarify that question, since we already permit medicinal. And then I would want something similar in nature to the production of it, or whatever that more broad catch-all statement is, because I think there's different operational things that could be going on there that would be beyond, or maybe production is very limited in that regard. I want to also tack on the word recreational to that as well.
And
Or maybe we just say all cannabis usage, recreational and medicinal. I don't know. I don't have a preference either way.
That's why
I would
our current.
I would suggest that.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, sorry. I would suggest that we don't be as generic as business, because then people might think of that as that same as the adult use, recreational use and sale. So if I heard David correctly, I think the one question needs to specifically talk about either the distribution or wholesale, so that this way they understand that. And then the other is a recreational adult use is the second question. So I just want to make sure that when we go back and draft it, that we just don't be as generic as business, because that could lump both of them in and there'd be that point of confusion.
I think in that circumstance, Bruce and David, the use of the term recreational is extremely important, because you have to distinguish between medicinal uses and recreational use. So I think that recreational, if you're going to do the two questions, should be in both questions.
Agree. And then,
because there's already a provision.
Right. A recreational adult use is, in my mind, one type of business, and the other is recreational distribution or whatever the words that are is the second type of business, and we need to have both of those distinguished.
Understand.
Sorry, Andy.
No problem. Does that give you enough information to go with? So you have some ideas of what the board's looking for there?
I got
Yep.
one more point, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. So in question 2, I totally agree. We should have the recreational. The only thing I would say is the adult use. I think we should just say recreational cannabis. The reason is that the Village of Roselle has no choice whether or not to allow the adult use of cannabis per the laws of the state of Illinois. So I think it just should say, shall the Village of Roselle allow the sale of recreational cannabis within the guidelines established by the state of Illinois and the Village of Roselle? Question mark. That way there's no ambiguity in terms of use versus sale.
David?
So I disagree on that. If you look at the examples that staff provided, the vast majority of them, when I was looking at them, used adult use. And my assumption is because of the misconception or the concern of minors getting it. And I think it just, yes, is it something that's by state statute defined? Absolutely. But I think it drives home and just further clarifies that this doesn't allow for other unintended consequences to occur. I think we heard a lot of those concerns during the public comment section when we held it last year. So I think continuing to use adult use in the language is important in my opinion.
Bruce?
I have one last question. So as David was saying that, I was thinking there's the sale, but isn't there some also the ability to use on certain locations? Like, and if is that something we have to clarify, Jim? I just
No.
can't remember that.
No, it's not, Bruce, because recreational use is allowed in your municipality currently, even if you don't allow sale or production facilities.
Okay. Got it. Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarity. Appreciate it.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
Bruce, were you referring to like the sort of establishments that allow you to have a lounge and smoke on premise?
That's what I was, yes, Lee, that's what I was getting to. Is that needs to be called out, or is that?
Yeah, does that need to be called out, or are we just saying, hey, should we allow this or not? And then the sort of full policy decision would be made by us at a future date, I guess is the.
That's correct. You're gonna look at what I characterize as a little bit more generic response. And then you're going to drill down on the specifics from a policy standpoint in the ordinances you consider and adopt.
Got it. Sale or usage in-house, we will deal with that under some ordinance. Okay.
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Staff, are we clear?
Yep,
Well,
we'll bring back two. Yep, go ahead.
Did you have something to say?
Just, are we doing number 1 as it's stated to allow the cannabis business to operate within the Village of Roselle to begin with?
No, that's not my understanding of the direction, Wayne.
Okay, so we're not using that. Okay.
Wait, 2 questions.
Two questions. Number 2, to relate specifically with the retail sale, but make sure we add recreational. Bring back an additional question in regards to the production.
Right.
In distribution.
Yep.
So basically, Brian, you could repurpose question 2 and remove the word sale and put in
Yep.
something about production or that, and that will satisfy, I think, at least my
Yep,
request.
yep, I'm aligned.
And I see David nodding.
Okay, seems like everybody is good. Anything else, Mrs. I don't know if that's after.
No, nothing else, Mayor.
All right, moving on to fire, which trustee Eichels will have in the near future. There is nothing to report this evening. Police, Mr. Domke, you have nothing to report. Public Works, Mr. Berkshire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to affirm the purchase of the base station repeater system and associated programming costs with the Illinois Communication Sales, Inc. in the amount of $8,420.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Pulaski,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then so I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for consulting services for the water SCADA improvement project between the Village of Roselle and Altrox Control System, a division of L. Allen LLC, in the amount of $41,322.
Second,
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call then?
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Domke,
aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz,
Aye.
trustee Sarno.
aye,
And our motion is carried.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the approval of the payment to Dell for the purchase of water SCADA computer workstations in the amount of $3,689.70.
Second,
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Domke,
aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
aye.
trustee Poleski.
Aye.
And our motion is carried. Anything else, Bruce?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, let's move right along to finance. Mr. Trejo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for November 23rd, 2020 in the amount of $2,775,054.11.
Second,
Any discussion on the bills list? Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye,
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Eichholz.
Aye.
And our motion is carried to pay the bills.
And I'd like to consider a staff recommendation to modify the FY 21 proposed budget to address the village board's concern about the pandemic, economy, and the state of Illinois budget situation.
Mr. Okay, second, Mr. Odell.
Is it okay if I make a few comments to start, Andy?
Absolutely.
Great. First, I want to thank the board for our last meeting where we got through the entire budget. But I think as a staff, we heard concerns by the board, and legitimately so, of the continuing pandemic and the recent resurging. I think the economy overall, both local, state, and national, and our state of Illinois budget situation, what will happen in the spring, and adding all that together is the spending plan that staff had proposed for the village good enough and in a solid enough ground to make it through the uncertainty of the next year. I think we heard the board concern about the proposed deficit in the general fund. We heard some concerns about the timing for the purchase of certain vehicles. And then lastly, the pace and the timing for when we do certain capital improvement projects. So while the village, as you know, is on very solid ground as we approach this new year in uncertainty, at the same time, my management team and I, we sat down over several meetings in the past 2 weeks, took the concerns with the board, and outlined some modifications that we think will help address some of your concerns. And very briefly, I'll kind of outline, there were 8 of them that we did. We took recommended number 1, that because of the fiscal year that we're going to end here has ended up with a surplus, why not remove certain small capital and commodity items that were budgeted in 2021 and move them right now and purchase them right now? So on the attached scorecard, we've outlined those items. Number 2, we decided to recommend deferring a decision on some of our special events. And that's obviously until we can get to the governor's Reopen Illinois Phase 5 plan. There aren't going to be no situations which will allow crowds to be together. We've recommended holding on budgeting for those certain events such as the 4th of July, the Rose Parade, and the Cocoa Crawl until a time we are able to move to Phase 5. Number 3, which was basically removing certain street maintenance projects out of the general fund. So street pavement patching, some stormwater that we kept as general maintenance, move them into the general capital projects fund and align them with some of our other street and storm sewer improvements. Number 4 was to really look at certain personnel. For example, the deputy fire chief, we won't be hiring that until February 1st. And as with the reorganization of our public works department, looking at all those positions and when we'll be hiring those, we kind of put pen to paper and now cost it out when those positions will be coming online, therefore saving some additional funds. Adjusting our risk management. Since our last meeting, we belong to an intergovernmental pool for all of our risk management activities. And due to the positivity of investments in the pool, we're going to get more back as a member. That has reduced our contribution, which will help us in the long run on the expenditure side. Number 6 is defer the purchase of certain vehicles and or apparatus. We have 10 vehicles scheduled to be purchased. We've outlined on a spreadsheet attached, deferring the purchase of 3 of those until mid-year budget, where we can kind of see what's going on. But we also identified why we should continue moving forward with some of those other vehicles. Number 7 is defer the bidding and award of certain contracts in several of our smaller capital projects. I think the board, David specifically mentioned, others did too, some things around Village Hall, the sidewalk maintenance, tree reforestations, some of our municipal building improvements and fire. We can hold on those till the middle of the year, but we highly recommend moving forward with the large items like our street improvement program, our water main replacement program. Those are programs we stopped last year. There is money by the state to improve our streets. We think it's important that we move forward and get those out to bid as soon as possible. And then finally, the item we didn't talk about, and Karen will be prepared to talk about, is we heard about the project pace of our proposed improvements to our public works building. It was a large number, about 600,000 of needed improvements to that facility. We've sat down as a staff, worked with Karen and Kristen, and identified ways to do that over 2 years. So at the end of the day, I think we have a very solid plan. Obviously, the board may not agree with all of these, but we wanted to kind of set the tone with where you were coming from in our last meeting and kind of identify some things that at the end gets rid of our deficit in the general fund. It slows the purchase of all of our vehicles and allows us to do those large capital improvements while holding off on some of the smaller ones until there's more certainty. So with that, Mr. Mayor, all of our management team, I want to thank them for working on this together, and then you all for identifying what your concerns were.
Questions, remarks? David?
So appreciate the additional work. I know that took a lot of time from the organization, so everything looks really good. The only thing I would push back on is when it comes to recommendation number 2 on the special events items, the amount of money there isn't significant. And to me, at least, our full intent is to have these events if the public health crisis subsides. And so I rather we have that included in our budget so we can move forward should we be in a better situation, with the full understanding that, you know, we're probably going to have to take the same approach we did this year and wait, adjust, and release information to the public when we feel comfortable. But I think that just outright cancel things, especially when we get into over a year from now, I think that to me, I rather make sure we have that reserved, because those are some of those things that have broader implications for the local economy of our community.
Sure.
Mr. Domke?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I just want to ask one quick question. Where do you show the expenses versus revenues where it's in balance? What line does that show that?
So if you look on Tom's scorecard, which is the first attachment, Wayne,
Yeah.
if you see the general fund, right, and you see the one column with revenues, another column with expenditures and the difference. So right at the beginning, you see we had a proposed budget deficit of 328,000. If you scroll to the bottom where we show every one of those items where we make those adjustments.
The amended proposed general fund budget. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Well, Bruce was at his hand.
My comment was actually the same as David's and yours, Wayne. I would much rather, for the small dollar amount that is, and I mean, it's not enough to take out and give us any lift, but it has a large public perception of removing it. And I don't want to call uncle yet on this virus. I'd rather we show that we're going to try and make this happen.
Right,
So.
you don't have to spend it.
Right. We got time. We're not going to be doing anything this winter anyway. So we'll wait till fireworks don't do really well with snow.
Lee, you agree there? I'm sorry. Jeff, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, after all the board comments, I'm going to steal an idea from Tom here. Obviously, we have reserves in excess of our fiscal, our board's policy. We can obviously use those reserves where appropriate. And Tom has mentioned, and Tom, I'll let you explain this. We could certainly include a new line item in the budget to reflect use of those reserves. So Tom, I'll let you explain an option for the board that may make it more palatable.
Sure, that would just be another revenue line that would say, use of reserves or reappropriation of reserves that would then balance the budget. It would give you the feeling that there's no deficit because we do have the money in the bank in reserve to cover that. So there would just be a new revenue line for whatever, if we add the special events back, whatever that difference would be, and then our budget would be zero. There'd be the revenues and expenditures would equal.
Bruce?
I personally I wouldn't go down that path. My thinking is we've always shown a small negative, knowing in the fact that we have that in the background. We also know that every year we evaluate throughout. And at that point in time, we can make yays or nays to something. So I find it okay the way it is, but I think we just continue to emphasize that we're going to review and evaluate along the way. And I would rather just keep our reserves where they are for now.
David?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if we were that concerned, I would take the 3 vehicles that we're going to say we're going to evaluate at mid-year, just pull them out entirely, and those could be mid-year budget additions then. I'd much rather go that route than kind of showing revenue that is very legitimate and accountable and correct, but I rather we just remove things that we're feeling softer on then, like those vehicles, to create that end result.
Yeah, and to finish then on that, personally, I would rather keep them in because we could always at mid-year make the call versus take them out and put them back in, just leave it. And those are asterisks for mid-year discussions.
If I may, I just want to, for the public that's watching, the vehicles are purchased from another fund called the Equipment Replacement Fund, not in the general fund. So even if we took those out, there'd be there wouldn't be any change to the general fund budget. So I just want to point that out for the public. That's all.
I do see the consensus of most of the trustees to leave that appropriated for the events there. And I kind of agree with them on that one. That was kind of one of my things. Mr. Trejo, you have something to add there?
Mute, Lee, you're on mute.
Generally, I agree that we should be putting them in the budget since we are planning on having them, assuming that the coronavirus sort of subsides. But I would like to see some offsets to kind of make sure that we're in balance. I don't agree that we typically have a negative at the beginning of the year because we typically don't. We do ebb and flow, to your point, Bruce. We are conservative in terms of budgeting, so we do get under on a lot of budgeted items. But to me, I think going into the year, we should have the plan that we're in the black, not the red.
I want to say I'm going to disagree, Lee, because I think every last few years we've had a deficit in our budget, and this conversation comes up every year. And my recollection from last year was the same, and the year before was the same. We keep the negative as low as possible, but we also manage it and to making sure that it doesn't go negative.
And with the understanding that there are certain things in our budget that if we don't know what our future is and in our future, that may have to be decided on at that time. So, we have been and will continue to be very good stewards of the, taxpayers' dollars and go from there. Mr. Trejo.
And then just a quick comment on Tom's potential solve in terms of the surpluses that we have or our fund balance. I agree that we shouldn't do that either as a new revenue line item. I think at the end of the day, and I've brought this up during the budget discussions, our policy is to have 35% fund reserves, and the rest of that money belongs to the public or it belongs to us paying down pension debt. Because at the end of the day, if we say our reserves are 50%, that money should be given back to the public, or it should be to pay down debt that we actually have that we don't really have, quote unquote, the reserve fund balance for.
Okay, anybody else?
Jeff had his hand.
But David did first, Andy.
All right, go
Just a
ahead.
general comment. I know that there's a lot of different things evolving right now, both at the federal and the state level, but I think it'll be interesting just as an item to track and to help keep us informed, maybe in our monthly updates, Tom, would be any stimulus packages or anything that we expect coming out that might be able to help us. I know we had some of that initial wave happen this year that we've been submitting reimbursements with the county. I think that's something else. I'm never going to budget with the assumption I'm going to get money from the federal or the state government, but the reality that there are talks and there's a appetite out there, I'd be curious to see what that can do and what the implications are. So I think that's just something that, given the unique environment we're in, I want us to just track and have that kind of more front of mind so we can help, if we do see opportunities coming earlier, I'd rather not wait till mid-year budget to kind of have some of these conversations that we're earmarking out. I almost want to say mid-year budget, or if stimulus packages rise that are relevant.
Mr. Odell, you had something to add?
Can I just say one thing? We met with the Finance Planning Committee prior to these meetings, obviously budget, and I think it would be good to reconvene that committee to really discuss the reserve policy, Andy. Obviously, the board's reserves are set at 35. I think our auditor would say as a non-home rule community, we should have more than that. So I think use of those reserves, whether it be for future pensions or whatever, I would like an opportunity for staff to meet with trustees Berkshire and Trejo as our finance planning committee to kind of review that. And then maybe that committee brings back another recommendation.
I'd be interested in hearing that recommendation. Mr. Trejo.
And just really quick, just doing a live look at the past budgets, the last 2 years, we did not have a negative adopted budget. We had surpluses in both.
Okay. Bruce?
I was going to comment on Jeff's point in the fact that, yes, we at the committee, now that with Lee's joining, we always look at that. But I think also, if I remember, Tom, we kind of talked about at the end of the year, depending on where we are from what do we have left in a surplus, those are the ones that we look to kind of use instead of just banking away. And so we got to wait to the end of the year and we look at that to help pay down the pension. That was one of our mantras as the committee and working with, I think, the actuarial recommendation. So Lee, when we get to that point at the end, once this year is closed out, we'll look to see what we have. And those are the things that we want to pay down.
Yes, Wayne.
Just to add one thing, I know that last couple of years we did try to balance the budget, and it would be important to say that we're balancing it now because of the pandemic. But to Bruce's point, if you look at what we ended up in the last couple of years, or even the last 5 years, I think we've had surpluses every year. So, and I know back in 08 and 09 and 010, when it was really bad before I was on the board and when Andy was on the board, there weren't surpluses. But, the bottom line is if we balance the budget today, even with the pandemic, the way we are and the way we operate, we will probably have a surplus at the end of 2021.
I truthfully believe this is a road none of us have ever been down. Okay.
I-
And I do think, I do think looking at things as they come along is going to be the future of what we're going to do. There's going to be a lot of things that may have to be put on a back burner, or some things that may not. Depending on, I can't forecast what our revenues are going to be, how strong they're going to be, and where they're at. So my recommendation is that we continue to pay close attention. We continue to watch what's going on. We'll see what the contracts are coming in for that we have. What we're supposed to do for the next year. If it's anything like anything else I've seen, the cost of materials is escalated. So it's going to be different than it has been in the past. I'm worried my concerns are is, yes, we have been good stewards. We have a fantastic staff. I mean, the justice is there just by looking at the recommendations this evening. I mean, we all only just disagreed with one. But as I'm saying is because of what we can't forecast and what we're looking at to do in the future, and with the rising prices of material and things, I think we've got to be very mindful and evaluate things as they come along.
Thank you, Andy. I think we have our direction.
Okie dokie. Anything else from anybody? Okay. Then that's it for you this evening.
David had his hand.
Oh, no, I thought we were moving to other business, so sorry.
All right. I'm going to move to other business right now. Go ahead, David.
So just wanted to get my thoughts out there and kind of take a temperature with the board as a whole. I know I've been closely looking at what's been going on, and as the pandemic has escalated, I know when we were having the discussions this summer about our home rule referendum question, we really wanted to delay that timing from November to April to make sure staff and the public had enough time to digest that information. I don't think we necessarily expected things to be in such a lockdown state at this point. And with a lot of different priorities and things going on, I'm a little bit concerned knowing that early voting will start February 25th. And I think for a lot of very good reasons, we haven't been able to produce a lot of information quite yet for the public. And I don't know if April makes sense right now to have a home rule referendum on the ballot. That's just my personal belief. And, you know, I wanted to ask a question of staff, and I know I had a small conversation with Jeff and Andy before the meeting, but I don't know how much we have gone in the way of generating information or giving the public information. And I think that's the big thing for me right now is what is realistic at this point. And I rather wait and do full justice to it, give the public enough time to communicate, as is our goal in our strategic plan as a board that we set in 2017. So that's just kind of where I'm at. Just wanted to personally voice that. And it took a lot for me to come to this consensus. And I think, you know, this was something that I was very passionate about, but I think we have to be realistic and trying to make the best decision for everyone involved. So,
right. Since you know, the subject wasn't on the agenda this evening, could we have this for a discussion at our next meeting? Bring it up, Jeff?
Sure. I mean, we can
So
put
I would
that on the agenda as an item and get the tenor of the board. I would say, number one, if the board chooses to do that, Jim can confirm, but we'd have to, if the board chose to not place it on the ballot like we've already authorized, we'd have to do another resolution repealing the earlier one to take it off that ballot. We'd probably have to do that by January 19th.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it done before. I believe that it's completely lawful to do it, but we have to make certain that we've given sufficient advance notice to the county election officials to make sure that it's effective. So as a consequence, if you're going to remove it from the ballot, we should do it as soon as possible.
Jim, I think, didn't the county board this fall put something on the ballot and then take it off regarding?
Yes.
So is that not a precedent we could use?
Precedent is an interesting question in this context because it really involves an election issue. Doesn't involve something like a court case or a statute. The statute is totally silent on the issue. As far as I can tell, there's no case law that's actually addressed that. So I'm saying we're kind of operating in an area that's somewhat nebulous at this point. And I just feel much more comfortable if we get the issue off the table as opposed to create an issue by doing it when somebody might say, well, this is too late.
Bruce,
especially with early voting in February, David, as you noted.
Bruce, I know you were up there for a while. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Andy. As much as David and others were passionate for it, I was just as passionate for that information packets and stuff to get out. And, you know, I still think that it's something we need to bring to the public, but if we don't have the information, and this was where my passion was, they're just not going to understand, and we're going to squander an opportunity that may go no just because we didn't give them enough information. So I would align with David in the fact that if we can't get that information out, or because of the fact that voting is going to start so early, and what we did see in the last election and how many people started voting so early, I would be remiss to say if we don't get it out there, we might just put ourselves in a dilemma that we don't need to, and I would rather pull it for now.
Jeff, what did you want
And
to add?
Mr. Mayor, with regard to your question about putting on the next agenda for discussion, if the general tenor of the board tonight is to direct that an ordinance be brought forward or a resolution be brought forward to do that at the next meeting, there can be a discussion, then it'll be formally on the agenda. The public will have complete notice of it. It will be lawful, in my opinion.
Okay. Mr. Domke?
Just be fair with this, though. The next time you could bring up the home rule would be what date?
I
What
believe
would be the election?
the gubernatorial election, the primary is in 2022 in the spring, and then the fall is the election.
So you'd basically be postponing it for another year. Is that correct? So it'd
That's
be
the way I understand, yes.
April.
And I think Jeff's correct.
Okay.
Well, keep that in mind then, before we decide.
And that can be discussed when the matter comes before the board for consideration.
So Jeff, I think if the direction is let's get it on for our next scheduled meeting for discussion.
We
Lee's
have
got-
some,
I have enough here to get my direction.
All right, Lee, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just my personal opinion, I don't think we should delay it. I think, I mean, we made this decision a while ago. Staff should have been working at creating information by now, knowing that, early voting starts. So I don't see why we wouldn't have had some information done. I think people are still at home. It's still a good time to host Zoom meetings, et cetera. I agree with Wayne pushing it out at least another year. I would not be supportive of putting it on a primary election. I would want it on a general election. So to me, it's more or less at least a year and a half out.
And I will tell you, our staff has been working on it and they are ready, so.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So if we're ready, we should start doing these sessions.
Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I would just say that we've used basically two vehicles to promote in April, this coming, we've done our fall 2020 newsletter, highlighted on the front page, the short-term rental issue and the board adopting the resolution to have the on the ballot for April 6th. And then also on our website, we do have a section on our website that has a home rule page. But clearly with the early voting, it's going to take some additional work on staff to, especially if the board decided they wanted to do a town hall or town hall meetings. Certainly we'll never not prepare the information you need, but there's still more work to do.
And just a clarification, my intent was not to imply staff has not done their work. I think that we have a lot with COVID continuing to increase in intensity, Abgeris project continuing to dedicate a lot more time and resources. There's just a lot of other very high priority things. And unfortunately, I don't think we can do everything at the same time. And that's where my concern is coming from. It's not that staff is underprepared. It's just when I look at things that we have and what we want to complete, I much rather make sure that we're managing the pandemic responsibly and we are doing the Abgeris project, the correct due diligence. And this is maybe something that needs some more dedicated time and breathing air to allow to happen, just to clarify my previous
And then just so
comments.
the public and everybody else knows about it, I'd like to get it scheduled on a meeting, so we have it in front of everybody and we're all aware.
Then maybe we could also, at that point, if we're going to look at it, is just understand what we would go down and what do we have time to do? Because my expectation was some sort of a town hall, or at least an open discussion, like we did with some of the other things where people were able to at least come in, ask questions. Even if we have to resurrect, the breakfast with the board or donuts with the board. I mean, something to that effect, just so that we can start having conversations beyond just somebody reading something. So that was my expectation all along. So that being said, if we get back together, maybe we could also hear from Jeff and staff of, what is ready and what do they think they can do? Maybe a outline of timeline and schedule.
Well, that's a challenging factor in how we're gonna do coffee with or donuts with.
The Grubhub actually delivers them, so.
Kitchen table, right? Okay.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts, you go on a Zoom. Zoom.
Andy, Todd had a question.
I'm sorry, Todd, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna make the comment as kind of being on the outside and just coming in that I think you guys are gonna need a full court press in educating the village about what home rule really is. And if it's something you want to get past, I mean, the fair tax law is 60/40 in Roselle alone. So if you're not going to spend the time to do the town halls and fully educate them on why the village needs this, I think you're going to ride that wave and it's going to fail before it even starts. Just my opinion.
So Jeff, we got direction here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else in other business?
I got one more thing. Just a reminder that the this week is the last free pickup for brush pickup from Flood.
Get yours out tonight.
Tomorrow,
Alright.
yeah,
Tonight
thanks.
and tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Get it out tonight and Wednesday, so that's it. Okay, 7 bags per family household. All right. Executive session. Have a motion to go.
Make a motion to go to executive session.
Second.
Purpose of the executive session exemption is personnel, and it'll be to discuss the compensation of specific employees in village departments, including administration, community development, finance, fire, and police.
Okay, and we are.
No
not
final
coming back-
action is anticipated.
Okay, so then I would ask for a motion to adjourn from the board meeting to go into executive session. And if so, everybody that's following us can have a good.
Patty wants to say something. She's on mute though.
We need to do a roll call for executive session first, please.
That's correct.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Eichholz.
Aye.
Okay, and our motion is carried. And then I would ask for,
So moved.
okay,
Motion to adjourn.
second. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you.